This evening, let's explore IBS, IBD, anxiety, and meditation. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. This is the Lama you are looking for. This evening we will chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Princess Leia during the training she received after Return of the Jedi, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. I need to take a moment to fuss with the smartphone that I use as a side monitor. Okay, that seems to be in good order. Let's see here. Okay. The words of Wesley Snipes in the second Blade movie. So exciting. I'm going to take a moment to blow my nose. If at any point during this evening's live stream you have a question, there is no need to be shy. Simply type your question in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Of course, by question I mean detailed question. What's that? You say you're watching a replay and there is no chat window? You're exactly right. So if you're watching a replay, type your detailed question in the comment area below the video. Hello, Adam Hayes. To you I give a psychic high five. So, allow me to remind you of what you already know, Adam. Some people are all cowboy hats and no cows. Some people have a lot of data but very little wisdom. When we look at the common denominators of the great Buddhist saints, not necessarily the great Buddhist scholars, but the great Buddhist saints, they all had a very simple practice. I'm going to let you off the hook. It would be in your best interest not to know as much as the pseudo-intellectuals who, to paraphrase Mike Myers as Cat in the Hat, who talk a lot but say very little, who possess great data but little wisdom. So allow me to get more specific. This individual who intimidated you, was he in person, on video, or in print? While I'm waiting on Adam, I'm going to, quick like a bunny, tap button number 5 and get on with the show. But I'm eagerly waiting Adam to get back to me if this intimidating master of trivia was in person, over a video, or in print. Oh, okay. Okay, is this person available on YouTube? So do me a favor and send me the link, and I'll gladly look at it after class. One of my Buddhist heroes is Dzogchen Rinpoche. My first teachers were geshes, and then Khenpos, people with PhDs, essentially, the Tibetan equivalent of PhDs. And they were very cranky and miserable. And their students were cranky and miserable. And when I stumbled decades ago upon the writings, the final writings of Dzogchen Rinpoche, I saw a man who had sliced through the malarkey of sectarianism and fundamentalism and rigidity and control. Someone who really seemed free, or at least freer than the others I had been exposed to until that point. There's a delightful biography about Dzogchen Rinpoche called Enlightened Vagabond. It's available both on Audible and Google. Forgive me if I sound like an advertisement. I get no commission. A frequent phrase that Dzogchen Rinpoche used was elaboration or complication, and he warned people against that. He warned people to have a very simple practice and to be free from trappings, from the trappings of rank and prestige and ritual. Just have a simple practice. Perhaps that is why his final meditation manual was for Yadam, that requires that even the greatest fundamentalists of the Nyingma sect agree requires no initiation. He taught a remarkably easy, simple practice. And he kept coming back to, he touched the heights of intellectual accomplishment and always retreated back from them. He explored every phase of ritual and always retreated back from that. He explored every every elaboration of Anu Yoga, Maha Yoga, and Ati Yoga, and always came back to the simplest practices. The key, the mark of spiritual accomplishment is not being able to win at the Buddhist version of trivial pursuits or to debate, but to be spontaneous, carefree, compassionate, and at ease. I once had the misfortune of interfacing on 2 occasions with someone who taught Buddhism not only at the college level, but at the university level. So like there's community colleges, then there's state colleges, and then there's the state universities. At least that's how it is in my state. And so this guy taught at UCSD, a very prestigious campus. And I sat in his library, beautiful bookcases, full of books, and he could speak about minutia that, but he was an asshole. And that's an insult to anal sphincters. Anal sphincters are important. They keep you from leaving a snail trail of feces. This guy did not serve a purpose. He was a horrible person. He was overbearing and aggressive, domineering, foolish. He had a lot of information, but no wisdom. I've encountered geshes who, when at the mere thought of what a question a student might ask, the geshes would start getting really, really uptight about their understanding of emptiness. No mental resilience, no flexibility, no joy, no humor. I've met the same with Kenpos, who could carve sentences that sounded impressive but meant little, who were more concerned with impressing neophytes than really helping people. Remember, when we read the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha promises full enlightenment is available within 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. Now, you can't get a PhD in 7 days, but you can get a rudimentary understanding of the practice, and you can spend a couple months just getting used to sitting cross-legged and practicing, and when you're comfortable with when your body and brain become comfortable with practice, you can do a 7-day retreat, and the Buddha says you can do it in 7 days. And so since you can't get a PhD in 7 days, but one must reason that enlightenment does not require academia. Or macadamia if you feel peckish. Doesn't need that either. There will always be people who major in minors. More than 500 years elapsed between the death of the Buddha and the first sutras, the earliest sutras. And for those with eyes to see, it's apparent that they were not all written with the same hand, metaphorically speaking. Some have a different cadence and a different style. The Mahayana scriptures look radically different than many of the Theravadan scriptures. The later Theravadan scriptures look different than the early Theravadan scriptures. When you have the courage, you can see that the late Theravadan scriptures and the Mahayana scriptures look like they were outside influences when compared to the early Theravadan scriptures. Later Theravadan scriptures look like they were Hindu influences. Mahayana scriptures looked like they were Hindu influences and Chinese influences. And there's nothing wrong with Taoist culture or Hindu culture, but they're different. They're different. And it could be argued that we don't know if the Buddha existed, and we don't know if these sutras are his. All we know is if I play with this exercise, this frequency, for this number of days, I get these results. And based on that, taking a very trenchant approach, I'm going to say, when I do practice A at frequency B for duration C, I get results D. Do I like results D? Well, let's futz with those 3 sets of variables and find something that works. And it's completely valid to spend one's life reinventing the wheel, or you can find someone who's reinvented it for you to make your journey easier. Avoiding blind faith, but being very pragmatic, being very, very practical. That's the only way. That's the only way we can really, really know what seems to work for us at this time. And then after the better part of a decade, after a couple 3-year retreats, formally or informally, or what I call a 7-year retreat, if you feel you're ready to teach, You can help people with what's worked with you. And I'd like to explore that for a few minutes. There's the first 5,000 hours you accumulate and the second 5,000 hours you accumulate. The first 5,000 hours of study and the first 5,000 hours of practice are for you to surgically remove your head from the warm, dark place it sometimes stays at. That's universal for the human condition. The second 5,000 hours of study and the second 5,000 hours of practice are about learning how to teach. So the first 5,000 hours, learning how to practice. Second 5,000 hours, learning how to teach. And so I've counseled people, hey, during your second set of 5,000 hours, start going to Toastmasters meetings. You'll become a more confident public speaker. And I tell people in their first 5,000 hours of training, do what I did. It's totally simple. I found a novelist whose nonfiction spoke to me. The way a novelist approaches nonfiction is different than the way an essayist approaches nonfiction. So I was listening to a Neil Gaiman novel, audio book, and my favorite part was the introduction. And I just really liked the way he put words together, and I was really fortunate to find that he has an entire collection of his nonfiction writings. It's called View from the Cheap Seats. And I spent a year or two spending the first 15 minutes of every day and the last 15 minutes of every day listening to it. And it gave me the opportunity to improve my ability to put sentences together. That's something you can do during your first 5,000 hours of study and your first 5,000 hours of practice. So that when you hit your second 5,000 hours, you are already geared up. It's like not waiting for spring training to start working out. To never lose your training, so that when you go to spring training or summer training if you're in football, or boot camp if you're in the armed forces, I would imagine in my ignorance that if you're already fit, boot camp's easier than if you've never done a push-up in your life. I would imagine the second category, find boot camp to be an extra special flavor of hell. Similarly, if during the first 5,000 hours of study and the first 5,000 hours of practice, you are passively absorbing the communication stylings of wordsmiths who speak to you on a visceral level, then when you hit your second 5,000 hours of study and your second 5,000 hours of practice, it's so much easier. Okay, so now let's take a gander at tonight's lesson. I'm going to hit button 5. I'm going to hit it hard. I'm going to hit it like it owes me money. I, on Reddit, posted, I need your help to start daily meditation for stress and anxiety. I continued, I really want to start meditating since I have been struggling with anxiety and stress for 6 years, and also IBS and IBD. It's a pretty shitty disorder, if you ask me. Doctors already encouraged me to start daily meditation, but I just don't feel comfortable while doing it. I feel more stressed. I hate doing it. I end up feeling uncomfortable sensations. I don't know what I can do to make it a daily habit, and I really respect I's vulnerability and passion. So this was my response about 6 days ago. Neither IBS nor IBD are psychosomatic. They are real disorders that can wreak havoc on our emotional well-being. So much so that one's gastroenterologist might even recommend meditation. Don't be impressed by the word gastroenterologist. I had to look it up on Google. I mean, I understand the word, but the spelling is a mystery to me. Let's continue. Now, although meditation could be a lovely adjunct, it is no substitute for the guidance of a psychiatrist well versed with the travails of your specific health challenges. Therefore, do not pass go, do not collect $200, and go directly to the PCRM database and find an MD who practices psychiatry in a manner that is informed by the latest studies correlating IBS, IBD, diet, and emotions. For this is clearly a case when two heads are better than one. In the meantime, yes, there are 4 easy contemplations that can really take the edge off of your uncomfortable sensations, emotions, memories, and imaginings. All is well, for this set of contemplations and meditations will only last for 16 or so rounds of breath, which could be quite manageable. The first contemplation serves as a reality check. During your enthusiastic inhalation, mentally recite the first slogan, "How could this?" And during your relaxing exhalation, mentally recite the second slogan, "Feel stressful." Don't worry, this question is purely rhetorical. Recite it for a total of 4 rounds of breath. The second contemplation explores compassion with the slogans, "All being stress," and "May I soothe." The third contemplation plumbs impermanence with the words, "How could this?" and "Never last." The fourth contemplation helps us to further train in letting go with a rhetorical question, "How could this not be me?" Each of these contemplations is practiced with the same protocol as the first. If at this point you feel you've built up some positive momentum, you could practice the contemplative equivalent of coasting by playing with the slogans, "Notice this," and relaxing for an additional 16 breaths. Clearly, this will reverse neither IBD nor IBS, but if practiced about once every 12 hours or so, could take the edge off and help you take your next steps into a much larger world. And yes, I stole that from George Lucas. What I'd like to do is spend under a minute on housekeeping. Every 12 hours, I broadcast a live meditation class without any ads other than this. With your help, this channel could come to support the next generation of nuns, monks, yogis, lamas, and even brick-and-mortar meditation centers, each replete with a resident teacher and their apprentice. If this speaks to you and you'd like to help out, even for as little as the cost of 1 cup of coffee a month, you could use the camera on your smartphone to capture this QR code, or you could simply click one of the links in the description area below the video. Let's explore the most recent iteration of Green Heroine's Easy Tantra. And all the stuff I teach, including this, is available for free download. Consult the links in the description area below the video. If you've just joined, welcome. Remember, if at any point you have a question about meditation, philosophy, or chanting, type it in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to begin tonight's practice with silent meditation. It is known by many names. Some call it Zazen, some call it Shan, some call it Dhyana, some call it Mahasandhi. Some call it Ati Yoga, some call it Sutra Mahamudra, some call it Trek Cho Dzogchen. Whatever you call it doesn't matter. You can call it George. Its purpose is to help us slice through the duality of dread and desire. And we're going to use 2 preliminary practices. The first is verbal. Please chant this with me 3 times. Kind Lama, please come to the crown of this head. You're kinder than all Buddhas, for you're actively present in my life. Kind Lama, please come to the crown of this head. You're kinder than all Buddhas, for you're actively present in my life. Kind Lama, please come to the crown of this head. You're kinder than all Lamas, for you're actively present in my life. The silent version is just one breath long. During the inhalation, mentally recite Lama come, and during the exhalation, recite to this crown. Of course, crown refers to the top of your head. So let's play with this for 3 or 4 breaths. The essence of mindfulness is to mentally recite seeing this during the inhalation. The essence of meditation is to mentally recite relaxing during the exhalation. But why do that? Because of neuroscience. Every time we inhale, our sympathetic nervous system helps to access the sensory acuity that allows us to notice the external and the internal, the physical and the mental, the pleasurable and the painful, the interesting and the boring, the glorious and the grotesque. It allows us to do these things, to notice these things vulnerably, passively, viscerally, spontaneously. But what do we do with all that stuff that we notice? Every time we exhale, our parasympathetic nervous system is wired to help us physically relax as well as mentally release. It can help us release our resistance to the presence of stuff we hate, our resistance to the absence of things we crave, our resistance to the loss of that to which we cling. Let's dig in. Let's play with 4 contemplations. The first 3/4 of these contemplations are rhetorical questions. How could hating feel stressful? Let's play with that for a few moments. Let us use our awareness of the pain that hate causes and allow that to fuel our empathy. And we can now wish all beings hating, may I soothe. Let's explore impermanence with the slogans, how could hate never last? Let's exercise our ability to let go with the rhetorical question, how could hating not be me? And we can return to our primary, to the dance of mindfulness and meditation. Let's contemplate some more once I find the cursor. How could craving feel stressful? All beings craving, may I soothe. How could craving never last? How could craving not be me? How could vying feel stressful? All beings vying, may I soothe. How could vying never last? How could vying not be me? Seeing this, relaxing. How could clinging feel stressful? All beings clinging, may I soothe. How could clinging never last? How could clinging not be me? Let's train the heart with chanting. May I yearn to liberate all beings through mastery of the Eightfold Path, with each recitation of the 10-syllable mantra. May I rely upon the Buddha's example, instructions, and students, with each recitation of the 10-syllable mantra. Kind Lama, may I regret the harm I've done and resolve to do the kind thing, with each recitation of this 10-syllable mantra. May I enthusiastically share with all beings all my wisdom, love, health, and possessions, with each recitation of the 10-syllable mantra. Kind Lama, please blend with his heart mind with each recitation of the 10-syllable mantra, for our minds are one in their empty nature. Let us now prepare to leapfrog over confusions, clinging, and competition with mantra meditation. This also is known by many names. Some call it Maha Yoga, some call it Mantra Yoga, some call it Tantra Mahamudra, others call it Togal Dzogchen. Let's start with the mantra's meaning. Om invokes the archetypes Tare, courage, to Tare, pacification, and Ture, increase. Soha supplicates with these attributes, may I like Tara liberate all. So who is this Tara person? Those who are literal-minded, rigid, and fearful think of a yadam as a real entity, a god or a goddess, and they beg and scream and beg for blessings and assistance, all the while increasing their aversion and avarice. Those who are flexible and laid back will view an archetype, whether they call it an archetype or a yadam or a deva or a devi, is merely that, an archetype whose attributes serve as mnemonic aids for the 8 metaphors or similes that we're going to play with this evening. Let us leapfrog over our clinging tendencies by contemplating letting go. As we breathe in, we can mentally recite a rhetorical question, and as we whisper the 10-syllable mantra, we can relax, which is key to making this effective. How is it that as we inhale, we can see our circumstances, and yet as we relax into our mantra recitation, these exact same circumstances could feel as if they were as non-graspable as a vast empty void. They could feel as if they were as non-graspable as the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although is tantalizing to the eye, is intangible to the hand. You can feel as non-graspable as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise, or Pure Land, or Vati, comprised only of light. How is it that as we breathe in, our bodies can feel rather sensual, and yet as we relax into the recitation of the 10-syllable mantra, these exact same bodies could feel as if they were as non-graspable as a yidam comprised only of light. As we breathe in, our relationships, which are built upon the foundation of communication, both verbal and nonverbal, can seem rather resounding, and yet, as we relax into the recitation of the mantra, our relationships could feel as if they were as non-graspable as a mantra comprised only of light. As we breathe in, our mind's functions of perception, emotion, intention, reason, recall, and imagination could appear to us rather clearly. And yet, as we relax into the whispered recitation of the 10-syllable mantra, mind and its attributes could begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable as a one-syllable mantra, a seed mantra, a bija, comprised only of light. And now, let us leapfrog over our competitive tendencies by contemplating love. As we chant the mantra, it could feel as if emeralds are emitting from a thumbnail horizontal 10-syllable mantra rosary at our hearts. Love hedging all circumstances, bodies, communication, and minds, with good fortune, health, love, and wisdom centered and spontaneous. No, my friends, our job is not to visualize or believe or even emote. Simply by playing with these words in the form of an intention recited during our inhalation, we could find it affecting or infecting our intention, our will, our volition, if you will. Woof. So let us lovingly wish that all circumstances of all beings. Now be as safe and as fortunate as a Buddha's fabled paradise or pure land or vati. Let us lovingly wish that all bodies of all beings, real or imagined, be as healthy as a Buddha's fabled body of light, or Yadam, or Deva. Or Sambhogakaya. Let us lovingly wish that all relationships of all beings and the communication that supports it, both verbal and nonverbal, now be as loving as a Buddha's communication symbolized by a mantra. What if humans became so loving we cease to harm any being of any gender, of any complexion, of any ethnicity, of any culture, of any species? Let us lovingly wish that each mind of each being, real or imagined, was as wise as a Buddha's mind, symbolized by a one-syllable mantra, or seed mantra, or bija. That concludes our 128 repetitions of the 10-syllable mantra. So far we've meditated upon awareness and letting go. We've contemplated love and letting go. Now we're going to meditate upon bliss and letting go. we're going to play with the dance, or consider, if you will, the dance of impermanence and interdependence. We're going to use melting as a metaphor of impermanence to better help us leap over our clinging tendencies. And we're going to use absorption as a metaphor of interdependence to help us to leapfrog over our competitive tendencies. What of all beings, of all worlds, blissfully melted into rainbow light, that absorbed into all worlds. What of all worlds other than Earth, blissfully melted into rainbow light, for they are as non-graspable as the Buddha's paradise, and absorbed into all earthlings. What of all earthlings other than our neighbors, blissfully melted into rainbow light, for they are as non-graspable as the Buddha's yadam, and then melted into earth. What of all of earth other than our neighborhood, blissfully melted into rainbow light, for it is as non-graspable as a pure land of light, absorbed into our neighbors. What if our neighbors blissfully melted into rainbow light, for they are as non-graspable as the Buddha's yadam, and absorbed into this place, this neighborhood. What if this neighborhood blissfully melted into rainbow light, for it is as non-graspable as the Buddha's vati, and now absorbed into our form. What if our form blissfully melted into rainbow light, for it is as non-graspable as the Buddha's yadam, and melted into our speech element. What if our speech faculty blissfully melted into rainbow light, for it is as non-graspable as the Buddha's mantra of light, and absorbed into our mind. What if our mind blissfully melted into rainbow light, for it is as non-graspable as the Buddha's bija of light, melted into and absorbed into infinite openness. We're now going to play with a very concise version of that. All beings melt into worlds. All worlds melt into earthlings. Earthlings melt into earth. Earth now melts into neighbors. Neighbors melt into here. Here now melts into form. Form now melts into speech. Speech now melts into mind. Heart-mind melts into void. feeling this relaxing. let's conclude with some chanting. May all the homo manas, non-humans, and so forth be overcome. May they become non-existent. May they be pacified. May they be thoroughly pacified. May all kinds of interferences, diseases, and possessing spirits be pacified. May all be separated from unfavorable conditions, and may all experience favorable conditions and everything excellent. Through this fortune may there be at this time happiness and health. May all beings, speech, forms, and lots be as wise, loving, healthy, and fortunate as green heroines, Bija Mantra, Yidam, and Vati of Lord. May all beings like green heroine, master being, flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, cooperative, and kind. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness, flow spontaneous and uncontrived. May all beings like green Tata master the Eightfold Path as well as liberate all others. May each take a auspicious rebirth, master the Buddha's path, and then help all others do likewise. May everyone be free from stress, may everyone be happy. May no one be separated from their happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging free. If you feel I have earned it, type something in the chat window. Share this. Give this live stream a thumbs up and share this on social media. In approximately 10.5 hours, we could explore relying upon Deva, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, as well as chant and meditate some more. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.